Hello
everyone. We are back with a different teacher this time. I'm joined with Mr Fotheringham, who is my economics teacher. He is going to be talking about business GCSE and economics GCSE. So just quickly, we're just going to talk about the fact that I had my economics A-level today. So we told you a bit about it. We told you sort of what came up. Was that kind of what you were expecting to come up?
On the exam, yeah. I mean, for sure. We talked about the structure of the paper. There's there's the known nouns, the way things are going to look, and so you knew how many sort of multiple choice questions there were going to be. Had a pretty good idea about the content too. The idea that you had to do monopolistic competition was something that was foreseen. Whether or not that sort of lived out in your ability to answer questions is a completely different situation. But then, exactly like with the GCSE, there's a lot of emphasis put on like the AO2 marks, the ability to use whatever you're discussing in context. So if in the examinations, they're asking you questions about, like they did about wages, then you can talk about firms and the way they hire people. And you might even have known things like, I don't know, like the minimum wage rate or, the average cost of hiring a worker. That would have been something that you could have
incorporated in my answer.
That you could have incorporated.
Yeah, I could have.
You could have.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
And that'll be the exact same situation with the people who are facing GCSE in the coming days. It'll be just that exact same notion about being able to contextualize your answers. The AO2 is so valuable.
Yeah, using examples.
That's basically what it is.
Always key, yeah.
Use examples. And actually, the irony of this, although I don't believe you've ever been a student of business studies. Is
no,
that
I haven't been a student of business studies, no, I haven't.
Let me just tell you that the scope for putting AO2 evaluation into your responses in business studies is even more important than it is in economics. So all of your answers need to, from the get-go, be structured about, from the opening sentence of your work, need to mention the case study. And that's a piece of advice that I think nobody should be without. You need to start with and then have like your entire project, everything you're writing has to be about the case. Yeah.
Well, do start getting your questions in for all about GCSE Business and Economics. I don't know if you have any top tips for people. Daddy says hi.
What's up, Danny? Top tips and ting. I mean, obviously, like I said just a second ago, you start your answers by answering the question. It seems so like straightforward and basic, and yet, like so often, students are apt to like throw out a definition for a term. It's not answering the question. You need to answer the actual question that's posed, and then in that same answer, you've got to be starting with the case study. You've got to be starting with the practical example in order to capture the AO2 and AO3 marks in the initial thing. Is everybody going to understand what AO2 and AO1, 2, and 3 are all about?
I don't know if they will. Do you want to explain it?
Yes, I would love to explain it.
Yeah.
So across all of the subjects that you study, be it business studies or English or maths or whatever, you get marks for 3 different categories. So you get AO1 marks for exhibiting knowledge about a subject. So that be in business studies and economics, that's your ability to like, explain key terms, use diagrams effectively, think of, in the case of business studies, the models of HR management or what have you. Those are AO1 marks, knowledge. And then there's AO2 marks, which are about a person's ability to use context. So that's to take the theory and the knowledge and then apply it to a case study. So, and because we're writing UK-based exams, any case study about the United Kingdom companies would be great. So you could write about Krispy Kreme or about Tesco or about Lidl, which is a German company operating in the UK space, or any other company that sells their goods in the United Kingdom. And then there's AO3 marks, which are about analyzing, and that's then taking the ideas of the knowledge that you put with the case study and showing the consequential action to those things. AO1, 2, and 3.
There we go. Okay. If you guys are watching, please do ask your questions. This would be a great time for you to ask any questions that you have, because Mr Fotheringham can help you with all of it, pretty much.
I'm not making any promises.
Well, I mean, most of it.
Yeah, might have something to say.
Mads has got her, she says business is her strongest subject and paper one is always the best for her. So she's pretty confident. It's good.
I think you can rock out on paper one. That seems like the right way forward. Any kind of the other aspect, of course, is your ability to answer multiple choice, which, depending upon your exam board, is going to have a lesser or greater role to play. I'd be really interested to know what exam board anybody who's watching this is writing, because the exams differ significantly between AQA, Edexcel, and OCR, or the WJEC board, if there's any Welsh people. I'd be really curious about that. And about any of the struggles you face, because even just I get to mark the exams, and so from a perspective of the marker, there's really very different processes that happen, and so depending upon which exam board you're with, there's sort of different advice that you want to follow.
Yeah, so please do let us know. I can see some of you are watching, so please do comment. Sorry. Okay, we did actually have a question from Danny. Any tips for the A-level exam on Monday? Thursday, not Monday, that was today.
Straight, Thursday's macroeconomics exam is going to be, there's a whole bunch of exams that are happening. So for Edexcel, the advice is pretty clear. It's about spending your time and being able to utilize the models that you were delivered, along with the various country case studies. Mm-hmm. So I know the students in my class have gone off, I know they have, and memorized a whole bunch of different facts about the United Kingdom, mm-hmm. which you can now kind of put to good use, and then immediately forget after the exam.
Yeah.
And that would include all kinds of really valuable information, like, for example, the gross domestic product of the UK, the growth rate, the impact of Brexit on our long-term growth. These are things that you're going to be able to discuss. Since taxation didn't come up at all in a microeconomic context, you are now very rife to expect questions about tax.
I'm excited.
Yeah, for real, yeah. There's also the wonderful Laffer curve, which is just the best bit of economics there is. And so talking about optimal taxation is always going to be a winner. That's all I want to say about that.
Mary says, top tips for analysis and evaluation for 25 markers in A-level economics.
Yeah. Hey Mary, what's up? If you are going to respond to 25 mark questions, there's a real tendency for students to start with long introductory paragraphs. From the marking perspective, I can tell you that we mark on levels and AQA and Edexcel, and instead of doing long introductory paragraphs, it's better to come out with knowledge that you stick at the beginning of a paragraph and then follow that with a case study immediately to begin your work. That's the first bit of advice. You want to structure your work so that you've got at least two separate issues that you can then compare and contrast. So that by the time you get to the conclusion of your 25 mark essay, you can go back to the question, reread the words of the question, formulate your concluding paragraph as an answer to the question that was posed, showing which of the two arguments you've made holds the greater strength. And you can do that in relation to like the very wide-ranging elements of society. So you can talk about the equality in your concluding paragraph, the overall equality of the issue you've said, the efficiency in which it's produced, what have you. But that final paragraph is really the opportunity for you to answer in sum total the impacts you've suggested.
Perfect. Okay, FIFA Legend 2001 says, how many A-levels are you sitting? Got my first one tomorrow. I'm sitting 9 A-levels. I had 2 today. I have the rest 2 more this week, and then half term. So I'm really looking forward to half term. Really looking forward to half term.
That's the understatement of the day.
Okay. Maisie Crick asks, how hard is the business studies GCSE exam? I struggle, I don't like revising it. What could I learn between now and the exam? So the exam is on Friday, so you've still got a couple of days left. Yeah.
What could you learn?
Yeah.
Golly. So you've only got, this is you're sort of down to the wire. Not to break the bad news to you, Maisie, but you're down to the wire here. So the idea is of memorizing like facts is sort of the zone that you're in right now. So key terms and facts. There's a bazillion different resources on a Quizlet, which you can flip to and use the app to make sure you feel comfortable with some of the vocabulary. For Unit 1. That's important. And then you can look at company case studies that you hope to use to support whatever is given to you. So in addition to using the case study that they give you up front, you can say, this is similar to another case, and then give some case study information there. So you could, in your spare time, sort of read around some of the events that are happening in business today in order to use those to relate in comparison to the case you're given. So go.
Right. Isaac says taxation is theft, which is an interesting view. Danny says, love the Laffer curve, best guy ever.
Our Laffer, what a ledge. You two people are talking about exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Taxation is theft. That's my friend.
Charlotte says, I'm taking economics for A-level, but I've never done it before. Will this be an issue? Most people who are taking it in my school have done it for GCSE.
Okay, so you're going to feel like everybody around you knows everything for roughly 2 months after you start.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do economics GCSE.
No.
Our school doesn't offer it, so all of our class just hasn't done economics GCSE.
No.
I feel like we're doing quite well.
What normally happens is you rock up and some people have got all the vocab they can just like throw down, and it makes you feel like left behind. Don't feel left behind because there's so much additional content at A-level and a whole different way of writing and responding to questions. You're safe.
Yeah. Maisie says, I don't think I'm going to get a 4. Can you help with basic tips for the business exam?
4. I think probably the fact that you're concerning yourself with doing study means you're very likely to get a 4. Let's talk tips on the exam then. Be very careful with the way you spend your time in responding to questions, because if you find yourself facing the last questions of the exam, the long questions, and not allocating the 1.2 minutes per mark, you're going to be really shooting yourself in the foot. So when you're going through the exam, you spend a minute answering questions that are worth 1 mark, and multiply that up, and try and get through the material as rapidly as you can to go back and answer it further if you have time at the end. Does that work out for you in this exam? You spend your time wisely?
It went better than the mocks did, but I still didn't leave myself enough time for the 25 marker, because I looked at the 25 markers, and I know we've had some, Willow actually commented saying, do you think Edexcel will go for weird macro 25 markers like they did for micro? I looked at the 25 markers before I answered them, knew I wouldn't be able to do great on them, and so decided to focus on the ones that I could do better in. So strategy, right? Yeah, exactly. I didn't leave myself the time I should have for the 25 marker, but that's because I knew I wouldn't be able to use it.
You gotta spend time where you're gonna get some mark value, and if you do look at the 25 marks, you're like, what?
I wrote some stuff for it. Yeah. Anyway.
Is it gonna be weird? No, Willow. I mean, I can't. I guess you play a gambling game. It's either weird or it's not weird, and you got a 50% chance. But they've gone weird already. That's anybody's guess, really.
Yeah.
I think normal. They've got to have a question on taxation. Yeah. They've got to have questions on that because you're so significant. Definitely. And supply side policies.
Yeah. AQA business tips, GCSE. That's from Ryan.
AQA business tips. Let's talk AQA business tips. There's I've brought some AQA resources, so if you've never seen documents like this one, you're going to be in for
a treat,
a real treat when you check the internet. In terms of the business responses. Okay, so just to be clear about what this is, there's a document called the GCSE Business Exemplar Responses, marked responses, and they're designed to help teachers and examiners to understand where marks come from. And if you haven't had a chance to look at the specimen papers, they're really great because they go through sample student answers and they talk about what makes a good response and what doesn't. And they're pretty uniform with their advice. So the advice is not unlike what I said earlier, that students have to respond to the questions that are posed. So be very careful to like underline words when you're reading questions. That's the most common piece of feedback that AQA gives. The second most common bit is that students are not fully integrating the case study with their work, and business studies has to be like fully contextualized. So that means that like every piece of what you're responding to needs to be about the company. If it's about a donut company, you need to be writing about donuts. And if it's about a car rental company, you need to be writing all about cars and the experience and the customer service and the website and all the rest of that jazz. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Maisie asks, what is Quizlet? Is it good for business GCSE?
It's Quizlet.
Well, some people don't have Quizlet. Some people don't need to have
Okay, so there's an app called Quizlet, which was designed to help students to learn vocabulary. So what it does is the first iteration of the app means that you get a little card, you can build up a list of vocabulary terms and definitions, and then run digital flip cards or print them out. And then they've gone and they've expanded the service, so there's all these games that you can use to learn things with. And you can download the app and stick it on your phone for free. And because people like me have gone and put loads and loads of vocabulary on, you will find all of the vocabulary and all the diagrams for every possible subject.
Yeah, you can just type whatever you're doing in and it will just come up. There'll be something.
Yeah. And then if you drag it into class and get your teacher to play games with you, it's deeply entertaining.
Quizlet Live. Yeah.
Endlessly entertaining for everyone. It's a definite quality learning app.
Right.
There we are.
Yeah. We actually have Pat is doing the Welsh board with business. Any help for that? / what's the best method of revision for business? She's in year 10.
Year 10. Awesome. Welcome, Welsh board person. That's pretty exciting. So I have to tell you that my experience with the Welsh board is relatively limited. I mean, I do the research at the beginning of the year to make sure I know what it's all about. But in terms of the advice for you for revision, so the models are, of course, really important. So the models that you're going to learn for business studies class, be it like Maslow's hierarchy or the Blake Mountain grid or any of the different models and situations that are essential. So in that way, going over them repeatedly is very helpful. So here are some random study tips. If there are models that you are not familiar with and you want to like expose yourself to seeing them all the time, I have learned that it's very helpful for you to like write the model on a post-it note and then put it somewhere that you're going to see it all the time, like on your mirror, on the milk carton, or just in a whole bunch of different places, so that as you go through your regular day, your memory is jogged about that thing. It starts to build up strong memories. Now that goes the same with terminology, because in GCSE Business, it's essential for you to have a good understanding of the core terminology. Quizlet will help in that regard, because there will be a WJAC Business Studies Quizlet vocab list for each of the different units, which you can then look up and print, or you can use the app to help you to revise. So there you
go. Morgan says hi.
What's up, Morgan?
Yeah, she says, do you reckon the grade boundaries will be lower than last year's based on what you've heard about the questions on the paper?
Look, it's way too soon to say that. The paper gets released to everybody who didn't write the exam tomorrow at 10, which is also when the draft mark scheme comes out for the examiners. So if you were to ask me this question again tomorrow at about 10:30, I'd have a much better answer for you. Yeah. But certainly, if you guys have walked out saying it was hard, and if you get onto the various other student blogs about exams, then you'd be able to hear similar sentiments from your peers, I think.
Yeah. Mary says, what's the best way to revise the Great Depression / financial crisis in A-level economics, as I'm struggling to revise the essential content for it?
So the facts of those two events are challenging to get straight in your head. And what helps me, I think, a little bit is to come up with a timeline for what happened and when. That's pertinent in both of those financial crises. So knowing exactly when the value of the dollar dropped and when the interest rate went to zero, in the case of the financial crisis, is particularly important. And I think if you can get the dates and time straight in your head, then the interest rate didn't go to 0, went to 0.5, then you'll be able to be quite accurate with answering questions. Yeah. So some of the facts and figures, and especially the dates for when key events happened. There we are.
Willow asks, any recommended examples of recent taxes in the UK to put into 25 markers?
There's been a lot of discussion in my class about the importance of the alcohol tax in Scotland. So, you know, you could use that.
Yeah. Any others in the UK?
In terms of like taxes in the UK, I think that probably some of the interesting ones would have to do with, you know, knowing who's asking the question as well. You know, like environmental pollution, which is such a core issue of our day. I just think it's so important that we can't really neglect the ideas of taxes like those levied on drivers in London. I think it's just, you know, important for us to consider about how the world can be made a better place through things like government intervention for the purposes of tax. So in that way, I would be sure to look at the congestion zone and the low emissions tax in London. I think those are probably like for any level of economics, that's probably where you want to go.
Yeah. Danny asks any tips on, basically Willow and Danny are in our class, that's why. Danny asks any tips on good ways to relax during the half-term break before paper 3. That's actually a good question.
I hear a lot about like the sort of like the spiritual and soul benefits of, you know, like yoga and
yoga's a good one.
Yeah, I think they're kind of like, you know, doing something physical that way is really important. Also, you know, you want to drink you know, a lot of
water. Well,
like fluids, basically. You need to keep yourself properly hydrated. I think that's essential, especially in this warm, sunny weather.
Yeah.
Probably want to look forward to doing that kind of activity. And then eating like a healthy diet. I was just in this discussion moments ago about the importance of keeping like a square diet. And I think it's so important that you have that kind of balance between like your spiritual and physical self. That's where I really go.
Yeah. Okay, Isaac says, do you accept that Austrian economics is better than Keynesian economics?
Man, see, I'm not even sure that there's a debate about this anymore, you know. The quote being like, we're all Keynesians now, was the way forward. But we see, you know, this, okay, for real though, this is like an actual higher evaluative point in economics, that you can really start to discuss the rise of, and this might be a little bit too technical for some people who are listening, but there's a real rise of protectionism that's happening on a global scale today, and a move away from big government to having free market economics. And that is like something you could legitimately put into the upcoming macroeconomics examinations for GCSE or A-level, actually, where it would be maybe more applicable. The idea that if we leave individuals to make decisions and firms to decide on allocation, we don't intervene in markets by putting taxation, regulation, and rule in place, we're going to end up with a more efficient economic system. The problem with taking that line of evaluation and inquiry on is that there's a tendency for economists to want to put the political agenda on the line, and it is exceedingly important, everyone should remember who's an economist, not to mix economic theory, which is about the efficient allocation of goods and services, with political theory, which is the satisfaction of the masses. So don't get sucked into that argument, people.
Yeah, I agree. Jade says hi.
Oh, what's up, Jade?
Yeah. Maisie says, our business teacher is like an IT teacher filling in. Should I be worried? Is there anything I can look at myself before Friday?
Yeah, there's heaps tons. Obviously, like there are an ongoing series of web discussions like the one that we are presently having. There are routinely routine updates that come through Tutor to You and other websites that deliver content, including the Intel Department for Education initiative called School, or S-Cool. That BBC-based initiative provides you with some solid business review. And then there are the plethora of past papers for business studies that are produced by each of the exam boards that are freely available to certainly your teachers in their entirety, if not to you as well.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people that we know today. Morgan, Millie, Ellie Tangi, Isabel. Hello, Isabel.
It's the entire Ladies College massive showing
yeah,
up.
pretty much. Yeah.
Ladies College.
Yeah.
Quality.
Yeah.
That, it's a funny period of time. I think like once exams start, people really do get stuck in.
Yeah.
And I do hope that everybody who is listening and watching is busy studying. There we are.
Yeah. Do you want to highlight what both GCSE Economics and Business students can do in their last couple of days before their exam?
Yeah, I mean, especially as we get closer and closer to the exam, our ability to sort of like learn new content disappears. So I'd switch anybody who away from revising from a textbook, certainly, away from that sort of thing, and look at practicing some of the questions that have happened in the past to exercise reflection. And so if you're able to work in groups of 2 or 3 or like 10 of you, and you can all get together and write the introductory paragraph to certain questions collectively, you can then sort of look at what makes the best kind of quality response from your peers. And that's something that will make a difference to you as you run up to exams. I think probably just looking at a series of different questions and spending a fixed period of 2 or 3 minutes trying to answer the opening to those questions would be highly advised. And when I say questions, I do mean sort of past paper questions, and some of the examples that you'll find through things like Physics and Maths Tutor and other websites like Tutor to You. That'd be my advice.
Perfect. Right. We'll be finishing off soon then. Thank you all for asking your questions. I hope this was useful for you. It will be available to watch later if you are wanting to watch it a little bit closer to your exam, because the Business and Economics GCSEs are on Friday. Good luck to everyone doing Geography and Maths tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining.